The sun was beginning to dip behind the distant mountains, casting long shadows across the dusty plains. In the small, quiet town of Silver Creek, there was little to break the stillness of the evening. The town's only real activity was at the crossroads, a place where people gathered to trade goods, chat, and sometimes meet travelers passing through. It was here that Adam Johnson found himself on that particular evening, preparing to buy supplies for his ranch. Adam had inherited the ranch from his father, who had passed away a few years earlier in a fire. Since then, Adam had lived alone, working tirelessly on the farm and keeping to himself. He was a quiet young man, tall but lean, with the kind of gentle nature that made him more comfortable with animals than people. His life had always been solitary, and he had grown used to the peace and quiet of the open land. But this evening was about to change everything. As Adam entered the crossroads, he noticed a small crowd gathered around something, or someone. The people were whispering and pointing, clearly intrigued by the sight before them. Curious, Adam made his way closer, trying to get a better look at what was causing the stir. Standing in the center of the crowd was a woman. Not just any woman, but a giant of a woman, towering over the townsfolk with her strong, athletic build. She wore traditional Apache clothing, beaded necklaces, a leather skirt, and a woven shawl that fluttered in the evening breeze. Her long black hair was tied back in a simple braid that hung down her back, and her face, though stern, had an undeniable beauty. She had an air of power about her, the kind that made everyone around her stand a little straighter, speak a little softer. The people in the crowd seemed to be in awe of her presence, but no one dared to speak to her directly. They all stood back, watching from a safe distance. Then, with a voice as deep and strong as a thunderclap, the woman spoke. "I'm starving for a man," she said, her voice carrying across the crowd, "and I'll have him tonight." The words hung in the air, shocking everyone into silence. It was as if the very wind stopped blowing, and for a brief moment all that could be heard was the sound of a single horse hoof tapping the ground. The woman's statement was bold, perhaps even shocking, but there was no mistaking the authority in her voice. She wasn't asking for anyone's permission. She wasn't hinting at anything. She was simply stating a fact. The townsfolk shifted uneasily, unsure of how to react. Some whispered to one another, while others simply stared at her in disbelief. But Adam, standing at the back of the group, found himself frozen in place. He had never seen a woman like this before. She was unlike any woman he had ever known, with her strength and confidence radiating out from her like a heat wave. She wasn't shy or demure. She didn't seem to care what others thought of her. And that, more than anything else, intrigued Adam. As the crowd began to disperse, Adam's feet remained planted to the ground. He couldn't quite explain why, but something about her had drawn him in. He had heard the rumors, stories of a woman who had traveled far and wide, a warrior of sorts with a reputation that made men both fear and admire her. Her name was Tala, though few knew much about her past. Some said she had once been a leader among the Apache, while others whispered that she had been wandering the plains for years, searching for something or someone. When the last of the townsfolk had left, Adam finally took a step forward. He couldn't let this moment slip away without at least learning more about the woman who had captured the town's attention so easily. "Tala," he called out, his voice soft but firm. She turned her head, and for a moment their eyes met. Adam was taken aback by how intense her gaze was, dark eyes that seemed to see straight through him as if she could read his thoughts without him saying a word. "You're the rancher Adam Johnson, right?" she asked, her voice now quieter but still full of that same commanding tone. Adam nodded, unsure of what to say next. He wasn't used to speaking with strangers, let alone someone like Tala. "I heard about your ranch," she continued, taking a step closer to him. "You've got land, cattle, but no one to share it with." Her words were sharp, direct, and made Adam feel strangely vulnerable. He didn't know how she had come by this information, but it seemed she knew more about him than he did about her. I keep to myself," Adam said, finally managing to find his voice. "I don't need anyone." Tala chuckled softly, the sound almost like the growl of a mountain lion. "You don't need anyone," she repeated, her tone thoughtful. "But you're starving for something, aren't you, Adam? You're hungry for something you can't name. I can see it in your eyes." Adam blinked in surprise. He had always thought of himself as someone content with his solitary life, but Tala's words made him question that certainty. Was she right? Was there something more that he wanted? Before Adam could reply, Tala stepped back, looking up at the sky. The night is still young. I'm not here to waste time, Adam. I'm starving for a man, and I'm not afraid to say it. The question is, are you brave enough to face what's coming? Adam's heart raced. He didn't know what she meant, but there was something about her presence that made him feel as if everything in his life was about to change. There was an unspoken promise in her words, a challenge that Adam knew he couldn't ignore. I'll be at your ranch tomorrow, Tala said, turning away from him. We'll see if you're ready for what's coming. With that, she walked off into the fading light, leaving Adam standing in the dust of the crossroads, feeling more alive than he had in years. The sun had barely risen when Adam awoke the next morning, his thoughts still tangled from the encounter at the crossroads the night before. He had hardly slept, his mind replaying Tala's words over and over again. I'm starving for a man, she had said. I'll have him tonight. The boldness of her statement lingered in his mind like a shadow. Adam had never met anyone quite like her. Her presence was powerful, yet there was something about her that made him both uneasy and curious. Adam couldn't stop thinking about her dark, commanding eyes. Tala wasn't like any woman he had ever known. She wasn't delicate or shy, and she certainly didn't need a man to protect her. No, she was strong, independent, and confident in a way that made most men step back. Yet there was a strange feeling in his chest. Something that pulled him toward her, something that made him want to understand more about who she really was. As the morning sun began to warm the desert, Adam forced himself to focus on his work. The ranch needed tending, the cattle needed feeding, and there was always something that needed fixing. But no matter how hard he tried to stay focused, his thoughts kept drifting back to Tala. He had never been much of a social person, preferring the quiet company of animals and the peace of the open land. But now it felt like the world was shifting around him. Later that afternoon, Adam was busy mending a fence near the northern edge of his property when he heard the unmistakable sound of hooves in the distance. He turned his head, his heart skipping a beat. His first thought was that it was just another rider passing through. But then he saw her, Tala. She rode her horse with the grace and confidence of someone who had spent her whole life in the saddle. Her dark hair swayed in the wind as she approached, her figure tall and imposing against the backdrop of the desert. Adam's heart raced, and he wiped his hands on his pants as he stood up from the fence. He had expected her to come, but now that she was here, he wasn't sure what to do. Should he speak to her? Should he pretend nothing had happened? His usual calm, collected demeanor seemed to vanish in the face of Tala's fierce presence. When Tala reached him, she didn't say anything right away. Instead, she simply stared at him with those piercing eyes. It felt like she was searching for something, perhaps an answer to a question he didn't even know he was asking. I said I'd be here, she said finally, her voice low but steady. And here I am. Adam swallowed hard, trying to steady his nerves. I wasn't sure if you meant it. I don't know what you want from me, he admitted, feeling foolish. He had never been good at talking to women, especially ones as confident and strong as Tala. Tala dismounted her horse with ease and walked toward him. What I want is simple, she said. I want a man who is not afraid of me, someone who won't shrink back just because I'm strong. You think you're strong enough to handle me? Adam's throat went dry. He wasn't sure how to respond. He wasn't sure if he was strong enough for someone like her. He had always been a quiet, reserved man, content with his solitude and the steady work of the ranch, but there was something about Tala, something that stirred something deep inside him. Maybe it was the challenge she presented, or maybe it was the raw honesty in her eyes. Either way, he felt as though he was standing on the edge of something he couldn't fully understand. I'm not afraid of you, Adam said after a long pause, surprising even himself with the firmness in his voice. Tala raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. Not afraid? Good, because that's the first test. She took a step closer to him. I don't need someone who will bow down to me or try to control me. I need someone who will stand beside me, a man who can face the world head-on with no fear. Are you that man, Adam? Adam felt a surge of uncertainty. Tala was a force of nature, so much stronger and more self-assured than anyone he had ever met. But there was a part of him deep down that knew he could be that man. He wasn't sure if he was ready for what that would mean, but the more he looked at her, the more he realized that this wasn't just about strength. It was about something deeper, a connection, an understanding. I don't know if I'm the man you're looking for, Adam said, his voice quieter now. But I'm willing to try. Tala smiled, the expression surprising him with its warmth. It wasn't a smile of mockery or challenge, but one of acknowledgement. That's all I ask, Adam. I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking for someone who is willing to face what comes without turning away. She stepped back, surveying the ranch with a keen eye. This is a good piece of land. A good place to build something. If you have the right partner. Adam watched as Tala turned back toward him, her gaze intense. I've traveled far and seen much. But there's something about this place, something about you that feels different. I don't know what it is, but I think you and I are meant to find out. Adam stood still, letting her words settle over him. He had never expected this. Never expected his quiet, solitary life to be interrupted by someone like Tala. But now, standing before her, he felt a strange sense of purpose stirring within him. This wasn't just about the ranch or about Tala's challenge. It was something bigger, something he couldn't quite put into words. Where do we go from here? Adam asked, finally finding his voice. Tala gave him a knowing smile. One step at a time, Adam, one step at a time. With that, she turned and walked back to her horse. Adam watched her mount it with ease, as if the entire world was at her command. There was no doubt in his mind now. This woman was not like any other. She was wild, untamed, and free, and for the first time in his life, Adam felt something stir inside him, a desire to be part of that wildness, to walk beside her as an equal, not someone who stood in her shadow. As Tala rode off into the distance, Adam stood there for a moment, his heart racing. The winds of change had come to Silver Creek, and they had a name, Tala. The days following Tala's visit were not like any Adam had ever experienced. His life had always been quiet, predictable, and filled with the steady rhythm of work. But now the silence of his ranch seemed different. It felt empty, almost like the stillness before a storm. Adam couldn't stop thinking about her. Tala, the Apache woman with a presence that was as powerful as the desert winds.
She had challenged him in ways no one ever had.
And he was left wondering whether he was strong enough to face the challenge she presented. Each day, Adam tried to return to his routine, tending to the cattle and fixing the fences around the property. But it was impossible to shake the feeling that something had changed. He felt as though the air itself was charged with something he couldn't quite explain. He found himself glancing at the horizon more often, half expecting to see her riding back into view. And then, on the 5th day since Tala had left, Adam saw her. She came riding down the dirt road that led to his ranch, her figure unmistakable in the distance. The sight of her brought a rush of emotions he hadn't expected, anxiety, excitement, and a strange sense of anticipation. She was here again, and this time it seemed she wasn't just passing through. Adam had learned that Tala was not a woman to be ignored. When she set her mind on something, she pursued it with all her might. As she drew closer, Adam set down the tools he had been using and wiped the sweat from his brow. His heart was pounding and a nervous excitement filled his chest. He didn't know what she wanted this time, but he could feel it. Something was different. This wasn't just another visit. Tala was here with a purpose. Adam, she called as she approached, her voice carrying on the wind. Adam nodded, stepping forward to meet her. Tala, he said simply, unsure of what else to say. Tala dismounted from her horse with a fluid, graceful movement and looked around the ranch. I've been thinking, she said, turning her gaze back to him. You've got a good piece of land here. It's strong, just like you, but you're not using it to its full potential. Adam frowned, confused. What do you mean? I mean, Tala said, her eyes locking with his, you're not living up to your own potential. I see it in you, Adam. You're stronger than you think, but you're holding yourself back. You're too afraid to take the next step. Adam was quiet for a moment, trying to understand. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially not like this. His father had always taught him to work hard, keep his head down, and focus on the task at hand. There had never been any room for dreams beyond that. But Tala was different. She didn't think like the people he had grown up with. She saw something in him that he didn't even know was there. I'm not afraid, Adam said after a moment, his voice quieter than he intended. I just don't know what to do. I've never been good with people. I don't know how to reach out. Tala smiled, but it wasn't a smile of mockery. It was a smile of understanding. You don't need to reach out to everyone, Adam. You only need to reach out to those who are worth it. And I think you're worth it. I'm here because I see your potential. I see what you could become if you stopped holding yourself back. Adam shifted his weight uncomfortably. He didn't know how to respond to that. Tala's words were both encouraging and intimidating. She had a way of speaking that made him feel both capable and small at the same time. It was like she could see right into him, into the parts of himself he didn't show anyone. You've got a fire inside you, Tala continued, her voice softening a little, but you've been too afraid to let it burn. I'm here to help you, Adam. I'm not asking you to change who you are, but I am asking you to stop hiding from what you could be. The question is, are you ready to face that? Adam didn't answer immediately. He looked out across the ranch, the land that had been his father's and now his. It was a good ranch, full of promise and potential. But Adam had always been afraid of reaching for more, afraid of failing. He had always worked alone, content with just enough to get by. But something in Tala's words made him wonder, was it enough? Was just getting by all he really wanted? Tala's gaze followed his, and she nodded as if she knew exactly what he was thinking. This land isn't going to change itself, she said. And neither are you. But I believe you can do it. I believe you can rise up and claim your place. But you've got to make the choice. Adam turned to face her, his heart heavy with indecision. I don't know if I'm ready for this, he admitted. I've spent so much of my life alone. I don't know if I can handle whatever this is between us. Tala took a step closer to him. You don't have to do it alone, she said gently. I'm not asking you to face everything by yourself. We can face it together. But you have to make the decision. I can't make it for you. For a long time, Adam stood there, his mind racing. Tala's presence was overwhelming in the best way. She wasn't just asking him to take on a challenge. She was offering him a partnership, a chance to build something together, to step into a life he had never imagined. But it was more than just a partnership. It was a chance to grow, to face his fears, and to embrace the possibility of something more than the quiet life he had always known. Finally, Adam spoke, his voice steady. I'm ready, he said. I don't know exactly what this means, but I'm ready to try. I don't want to keep hiding anymore. Tala's eyes softened and she smiled again, this time with approval. Good, then let's begin. From that moment on, things changed between them. It wasn't easy. There were challenges along the way, moments when Adam doubted himself, when he wasn't sure he could keep up with Tala's strength and confidence. But with each passing day, he grew stronger, physically, emotionally, and mentally. Tala pushed him to be better, to reach higher, to see beyond the limits he had placed on himself. And in doing so, Adam began to realize that maybe, just maybe, he had been underestimating himself all along. Together they worked the land, built up the ranch, and created something greater than what Adam could have ever imagined on his own. But it wasn't just about the ranch. It was about Adam finally stepping into the life he had always been meant to live, one of purpose, strength, and partnership. And as for Tala, she had found the one man who was willing to stand beside her, not behind her, not ahead of her, but beside her as an equal. As the days stretched into weeks, Adam and Tala grew closer. The ranch, once a lonely place where Adam had worked in solitude, became a place where they both shared their time and effort, building something together. Tala had proven to be a fierce and capable partner, her experience and knowledge of the land making her an invaluable ally. Adam, though inexperienced in some ways, had qualities that Tala respected: his determination, his quiet strength, and his willingness to learn. He had come a long way since she had first appeared on the ranch, challenging him in ways he had never expected. However, with each passing day, Tala pushed Adam further, testing not just his physical strength but his emotional resilience. She wanted to see how far he could go, not just as a rancher but as a man who was learning to step into his own power. She knew that Adam had potential, but she also knew that he had to face his fears head-on if he was to truly grow. One morning, after a long night of rain, Adam was working outside, mending fences that had been damaged by the storm. His muscles ached from the work, and the dampness of the air made everything feel heavier. He was focused on the task at hand when he heard the sound of Tala's footsteps behind him. You've been working non-stop, she said, her voice calm but firm. You've got to take a break, Adam, rest for a while. Adam looked up at her, wiping the sweat from his forehead. His face was tired, his body sore from the long hours of labor, but he didn't want to stop. He had been trying so hard to prove himself to her. to show that he was capable of handling the challenges she had given him. "I'm fine," he said, trying to brush off the exhaustion. "There's still work to do." Tala crossed her arms and looked at him with an intensity that made him pause. "You're pushing yourself too hard," she said. "Sometimes strength is knowing when to stop. You don't have to prove anything to me, Adam. But you do need to listen to your body. You're not a machine. If you don't take care of yourself, you won't be able to keep going." Adam hesitated, feeling the weight of her words. For so long, he had defined himself by his work, by his ability to push through exhaustion and pain. But Tala's words were a reminder that true strength wasn't just about physical endurance. It was about balance, knowing when to pause and when to press forward. He let out a sigh, realizing that she was right. "All right," he said, setting his tools down. "I'll take a break." Tala smiled, her eyes softening. "Good. You're learning." Over the next few days, the rain began to clear and the sun returned to the sky. The work on the ranch continued, but there was a new rhythm to it. Adam had learned to pace himself, understanding that pushing too hard wasn't the answer. He had also learned to rely on Tala, not just for her knowledge of the land, but for the strength she brought to every situation. She wasn't just a mentor, she was a partner, someone who saw him as an equal, and that made all the difference. One afternoon, as Adam was working in the barn, Tala appeared at the door, her expression serious. "I think it's time," she said, her voice steady. "Time for you to prove something to yourself." Adam looked up, confused. "What do you mean?" "You've been working hard," she said, "but now it's time for a test. I've been pushing you, showing you the way, but there's something you need to understand. Strength isn't just about doing what's easy. It's about doing what's difficult, what's uncomfortable. You've been holding back. You're stronger than you think, but you need to let go of your fear." Adam felt a flutter of unease in his stomach. "What kind of test?" Tala's eyes gleamed with a hint of mischief, but there was no doubt in her voice. "A physical challenge. I want to see if you're ready to take the next step. We'll race to the top of the hill, just over there. It's a long climb and it's steep. But I know you can do it. You've got the strength, Adam. What you don't have is the belief in yourself." Adam swallowed, his heart beating faster. He had always thought of himself as a man of the land, someone who could handle the hard work of the ranch. But this was different. This wasn't just about work. It was a test of his will, his determination, and most of all, his belief in his own strength. "I'm ready," he said, even though a part of him was unsure. But he wasn't going to back down. Not now. Not after everything Tala had taught him. They started at the base of the hill, the path winding upward, the ground uneven and rocky beneath their feet. Tala moved with the ease of someone who had climbed this hill many times before, but Adam felt every step in his legs. His breath grew heavier and his muscles began to ache, but he refused to slow down. He couldn't let her see him give up. Tala glanced back at him, her face unreadable. "Don't stop," she called over her shoulder. "This is about your mind, not just your body. Keep going." Adam gritted his teeth and pushed forward. The climb was harder than he had imagined. His legs burned and the weight of the task seemed to grow heavier with each step. But with every breath he told himself to keep moving. He was doing this for himself, to prove that he could push past his limits. Finally, after what felt like hours, Adam reached the top. He collapsed onto the ground, his chest heaving with exhaustion. Tala was already there, standing tall and looking down at him with a satisfied smile. "You did it," she said, her voice softer now. "You didn't stop. You didn't give up." Adam sat up, his body shaking from the effort. He felt like he had given everything. But in that moment, he realized something important.
He had made it to the top, not because it was easy, but because he believed he could.
Tala had pushed him, but it was his own determination that had carried him up that hill. "I never thought I could do something like this," Adam said, his voice filled with awe. "But I did it." Tala sat down beside him, her face proud. "I knew you could. You just had to see it for yourself. Strength isn't about being the strongest or the fastest. It's about having the courage to keep going even when it's hard. You've got that now, Adam." Adam looked at her, a sense of gratitude filling his heart. Tala had taught him more than just how to work the land or how to push through physical pain. She had shown him the power of his own will, and in that moment, he realized that the greatest challenge wasn't the hill they had climbed, it was believing in himself. As the sun began to set over the hill, casting a warm golden light across the land, Adam felt a new sense of peace settle over him. He had crossed a threshold. He wasn't the same man who had first met Tala on that dusty crossroads. He was stronger, more confident, and more ready to face whatever lay ahead. Together they would face the future, and whatever challenges came their way, Adam knew that he was ready. The wind had shifted, carrying with it the scent of dust and wild sage. The ranch had transformed in ways Adam could hardly describe. What was once a quiet, lonely stretch of land worked by a solitary man had now become a place where two people's hopes and dreams intertwined. Adam had grown in ways he never expected since Tala had entered his life. And as much as he had once feared change, now he welcomed it. It had been several months since the day Tala had tested him on the hill. With every passing week, Adam had come to realize how much he had learned, not just about farming, but about himself. Tala had pushed him, prodded him to confront his weaknesses, and with each challenge he had emerged stronger. But it was more than just the physical challenges. It was the way she had helped him open his eyes to the potential within himself. One evening, as they sat around a fire just outside the barn, the stars above twinkling in the vast, dark sky, Adam thought about how far they had come. The land they worked on was thriving. The crops had grown strong and the cattle were healthy. But it wasn't just the ranch that was flourishing. It was their relationship. Tala had become his equal in every way, and as much as she had once challenged him, she now stood by his side, her strength complementing his own. "You've come a long way, Adam," Tala said, her voice carrying in the still night air. She had a warmth to her voice now, something that had slowly emerged as the months passed. It wasn't the same bold, commanding tone she had used when she first arrived. It had softened just slightly, but it still held that steady confidence that Adam admired so much. Adam looked over at her, his expression thoughtful. "I couldn't have done it without you," he replied. His words were simple, but they held more weight than he realized. He had never known anyone like Tala, someone who didn't just teach him the ways of the world, but who also showed him the strength of vulnerability. "You could have," Tala said, her smile gentle. "But you wouldn't have done it the way you did if I hadn't pushed you. You needed to believe in yourself." Adam felt the truth in her words, and in that moment something deep within him shifted. He had always thought of himself as a man who was capable, someone who could handle the physical challenges of ranching. But Tala had shown him that strength came in many forms, not just in the muscles of the body, but in the heart and the mind. He had learned to trust in his own judgment, to push through fear, and most importantly, to open his heart to new possibilities. "Do you ever think about what comes next?" Adam asked quietly, staring into the fire. "I mean, after everything we've done here, what happens when we've built all this? What's the next step?" Tala's gaze softened and she leaned back, looking out over the dark expanse of the ranch. "I've thought about it," she said after a pause, "but not in the way you might think. I've been so focused on the work, on the land, on the challenges, that I didn't think about what comes after. But now that I'm here, I realize something important." "What's that?" Adam asked, his curiosity piqued. Tala looked at him, her eyes filled with something Adam couldn't quite read. "It's not about the next challenge. It's not about what we build on this land or how much we can achieve. It's about who we are in the process of building it. It's about the people we become along the way." Adam thought about her words carefully. For so long he had measured his life by how much he could accomplish, how much he could achieve on his own. But now, with Tala by his side, he was beginning to see that the real measure of a life wasn't in what was built, but in who built it, and why. The journey mattered just as much, if not more, than the destination. "I've always been alone," Adam said softly, his voice a little strained with emotion. "But now, I don't want to be. Not anymore." Tala reached over and placed her hand gently on his. It was a simple gesture, but one that spoke volumes. "You don't have to be, Adam. You never did. I've been alone too, you know. But I don't want to be anymore either. Not with you." In that moment, Adam realized something he hadn't fully understood before. It wasn't just the ranch or the land or the work that mattered. It was the partnership they had created. The bond that had formed between them wasn't one of convenience or necessity. It was a connection built on mutual respect, trust, and the willingness to grow together. "I don't know what the future holds," Adam said, his voice steady now, "but I know I want you in it. I want us to face whatever comes together." Tala's smile was warm, and there was a softness in her eyes that Adam had rarely seen. "I want that too, Adam. I've never met a man like you. You've got a quiet strength that I admire, and together, we can build something real." For a long moment, they sat in silence, watching the fire flicker and dance in the night. The world around them was vast and uncertain, but in that moment, Adam felt certain of one thing: he was no longer alone. As the fire began to die down, Tala stood and stretched, the night air cool against her skin. "Come on," she said, offering her hand to Adam. "Let's see where this path leads together." Adam took her hand, feeling the warmth of her touch spread through him. He knew deep down that no matter where their journey took them, they would face it together. Whether it was the ranch, the land, or whatever came next in life, they had something more important than all of it: each other. As they stood there, hand in hand, looking out over the ranch they had built together, Adam realized that he had found what he had always been looking for: not just a partner in work, but a partner in life. And it was a bond that nothing could break. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: whatever challenges came their way, they would face them side by side. And in that, Adam found peace.